Hi, folks. This is Don Meisner with the North Country Fishing Report. On our last report, I talked about the Toledo Bend Bass Study. Well, here's some of the things that came from that. They released all of the fish that they wanted to study right where they caught them, right in the same spot. They put them back in the water. And they were careful to select half of their fish from shallow water and half of their fish from deep water, because they know fish have different preferences, and they wanted to make sure the study didn't favor one type of location over another. One of the things they found, among many, many things, is that on an average day, bass only moved about 150 feet. Now, I got to tell you, that's like watching Tim Conway on some of the shows walk like the oldest man in the world, barely trudging his feet. And that's basically what these bass were doing. It's important to realize this, that once they have a certain area, they tend to prefer it. The other thing is they found that these bass had two basic preferences. They had two homes. They would spend months in one home, and I'm saying home because it's an area they selected to be their home, maybe 5 miles apart from their other preference. This was amazing, and they knew exactly when they would leave one and go to another. The biggest bass that they studied was an 8.5-pound fish. Now, they named every one of these fish. They had Sally and Donna, and they had Sam and Nick, and different names for these fish, and they studied each one individually. Sally, the biggest bass of all, 8.5 pounds, they found would leave the location where they caught Sally and would travel 6 miles all the way down the lake. Now, the lake is a tremendous distance, but 6 miles away, and then went back into the shallowest of water with tons of vegetation and so forth, places where the average tournament fisherman would never even go so far back in. And Sally stayed there when the water temperature was almost 90 degrees. Now, this is a great big fish that should be more subject to stress with higher temperatures that you would think. Now, these are largemouth bass, but 90 degrees, and then would abruptly leave when the water level dropped 2 inches and go to another spot miles away and hang out there. And this is just phenomenal research that they did. One of the other fish they found that loved docks. And so no matter where they put that fish back in, it would go back to under a dock. It loved docks. That was what it thought was the best place to live. And so even they'd take a boat near that dock and run back and forth, and that fish would not react. It wouldn't leave the dock, and they were able to catch it again, catch it twice on Texas rigged worm. That's not as important as is the location. But one of the other things that they started to find is, why did this fishing pressure cause such a drop in the number of fish that were caught? And they found that these fish were going now to locations that no bass fisherman would ever try to go to. It was basically no structured areas, just big flats of water. There might be one little stump or brush on that water, but it's water that no fisherman would take the time to even try to fish. And this was fascinating. Here's the other thing that came of this study. As soon as a boat would come near, a lot of those fish would leave immediately. They knew that boat was coming near them. The second thing is that as soon as they would throw a lure to this fish that they had located on these barren flats, the fish often would scatter away. Didn't want anything to do. In fact, the lure scared them. And these are big bass. We're not talking about little bitty fish. So this was another important part of this study. And finally, the other thing I wanted to tell you today is, and this relates to all the tournaments that we have here. If a fish is caught, we've always worried about the fact that if a fish is caught down in the Thousand Islands and the tournament is in Messina, and we bring the fish all the way back and we release it up here through the release boat, what is that fish going to do? Is its natural instinct to go all the way back 75, 80 miles to where it was caught? And they found in releasing these fish in the tournaments had brought in, and releasing them in that area. If that area has the very things that they need, in other words, the cover, the water temperature, the food, they'll find a new home. This becomes their new home. They don't need to go back to where they were. As long as they find conditions that are compatible to what they need, that's where they're going to stay. So here, in putting all of this, and there was so much more of this, it was just amazing, some of these other habits that the bass have. What it indicated, though, is different bass have different choices. They have different likes, different things that they adapt to where others don't want that. They want to go to a dock. They want to go back to branches, or they want to stay in this open area that they feel more safe in. It's much like one of the things that I was talking about, how some farmers have told me that deer now are coming more into the middle of fields instead of staying along the edges, because their instinct tells them that they'll be safer here from coyote predators or whatever else. It's the same thing with fish. You know, there's so many things that we can learn every day. We think we've got the answers. We think that the pros out there got all the answers. They don't either. It's a constant adaptability type of concern for the beings that exist around us and for us too. Until next time, folks, this is Don Meisner with the North Country Fishing Report.